Welcome back, Thrivers, for another exciting guest episode of the Thriving Equine Professional. So today's show is coming to you from Iowa, which Sara Schaefer, I don't think that we have had an Iowa guest yet. So welcome to the Thriving Equine Professional, and thank you so much for joining today to share your incredible story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So I always like to share with listeners. I get so much feedback on, how you meet these people, Jodi. How do you meet these guests? This one was a mutual connection from my dear friend, Lauren Bridges. So I think that Lauren mentioned your name in a recent conversation, and I stalked you then on LinkedIn. And so here we are. You took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and said, yes, I will join the show. And I'm really excited after learning a little bit more about you, Sara, to share exactly what some of your experiences have been that have led you now to be a manager of training and facilitation for the livestock programs, large animal programs with Zoetis.
Correct.
But all along the way, you really came from an agriculture rich background. And so let's start at the beginning. You have a lot of education in your background, a lot of 4-H in your background. So let's talk about the fact that you are the first generation off the farm on a dairy in Wisconsin. So give us a little bit about the early years.
Sure. So I am a Wisconsin native, so Iowa transplant, but yeah, my family was involved in the dairy industry. And so I was actually the first generation off the farm, as you mentioned, but grew up with some aunts and uncles that still did farm on other operations. So grew up milking cows and definitely did not have the fancy parlor systems. Like I grew up in the old swing parlors and didn't even have pipelines for milk back in those days. So I had a very strong foundation in agriculture from the beginning. And growing up, we actually moved to northern Wisconsin. There's a lot less dairy there, but I was really fortunate to get involved in 4-H. And I had always had a pony growing up, and I think my parents hoped I'd outgrow it, and I never did. So that was what kept me involved in 4-H when we moved to northern Wisconsin, and was very heavily involved in 4-H throughout my youth years. And that's definitely instrumental in kind of how I got to where I am today.
So, one of the things, Sara, that I really want to focus on, you talked about your 4-H experience and that being pretty equine focused, but you give a lot of credit to the horse judging experiences that you had shaping your future. Now, we haven't talked about that on the podcast yet and how impactful judging can be. So, whether that's horse judging or cattle judging from a beef or dairy perspective, whatever it is, that's a really intense activity to take on. And I agree that it really does give us a lot of skills. So let's talk a little bit about why that has been such an impactful experience for you and how kind of it shaped your, pursuit of your education and your career.
Yeah, you bet. I do credit a lot of my successes have been from 4-H and judging at a collegiate level. And I had great 4-H volunteers and great experience being involved in other 4-H activities like our county 4-H ambassadors, camp counselor, all of that I didn't even know was out there. I just joined 4-H for the horses. So I had those great experiences, and that helped me when I got to college. I can remember I went to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, and known for their horse program and all of their agriculture programs. And when I was a freshman, I remember sitting down with Larry Caston. He was my advisor. Really great experiences with him in college. And he sat down and said, "You have really good grades and you've got that 4-H public speaking experience. I think you should do horse judging." And I had never done it before, wasn't aware it was a thing at the collegiate level, no experience in it except I had just grown up showing 4-H and open shows. So I signed up, and Dr. Chris Heine was at River Falls at the time, and she was my coach and was able to participate on the team. And we were Division III school. This isn't like I was there on scholarship or anything, but was able to compete at the World Quarter Horse Show, at the Congress, at the Reining Horse Futurity, the NRBC, and successfully competed as a top 10 individual in quite a few of those contests, which was pretty impressive because I had zero prior experience with it, but just a really great coach. And I actually ended up, when I went into my master's program, I wrote my thesis on the benefits and life skill development of participating in collegiate judging activities. So it was that impactful for me and for others, my peers in different species, that I chose to write my thesis on it, actually. So
Oh, wow, that's incredible. So there's the tidbit of what I learned. As soon, I picked right up on your judging background because again, like to your point, life skills that are really hard to duplicate in other ways. So as our listeners hear this, there are so many people out there that just don't realize the power of some of those experiences. If you can get involved in a 4-H program, get involved. If you can do some public speaking, if you encourage the youth around you, people who are interested in horses, and maybe they're growing up in a particular discipline not associated with 4-H, go find a program where you can participate in some of those types of things, because the power of judging experience, whether that's youth, high school, collegiate, it is really character building and opportunity door opening.
you bet, you bet. And it definitely made me a better exhibitor as far as all the classes I show in, but just the ability to make decisions, to think on your feet, to be confident in your decisions, to defend your placings with oral reasons. It just all really impacted me and obviously led me to a professional career in horse judging as well. So that was kind of the icing on the cake, is that I still get to do that as a professional in the industry in my current state of affairs. So
Right. And that's what I was going to say. You still, and now, your own business, in addition to a full-time career, you're still showing and training and judging. And now you have a 2-year-old little girl who is in the show ring, right, on the lead line
yep,
classes.
yep.
So you are truly the whole package of thriving equine professional, I would say, which is why I was excited, to kind of share this story. So, Sara, you have your bachelor's was in animal science and you minored in ag business. Was that a strategic decision?
Well, it's funny because at River Falls, you have the opportunity to do kind of a pre-vet track or the ag business track. And so I knew I wasn't going to be a veterinarian, and I had thought for probably a hot minute that I was going to be a horse trainer, and things changed, fortunately for me. But ag business was the option. And at the time, I can tell you, I really wasn't into the ag business classes. I wasn't too excited about ag accounting and markets and prices. And it was the option I took. And looking back now, those are probably some of the most beneficial classes that I took in college. And in my future years, when I moved on and was teaching myself at a collegiate level, I taught a lot of ag business, and I would get on my soapbox probably once a week with those students about how important it is to understand the business side of it, whatever business it is you go into. And if you don't enjoy it, to find the right person to help you, advise you in a business role, whether that's having an accountant, somebody doing your trading on the markets for you, whatever it might be. But sound business decisions, I think, are tough to make. And I think it's really difficult, especially in the horse industry, which is why a lot of our big associations are putting on business opportunities for horse trainers and others involved in the industry that are self-employed.
Ah, you are singing my song, sister, singing my song. I asked that on purpose. Again, I want our listeners to really hear the power of some business background. I think that we're really seeing, and I continue to coach young women, especially who want to get equine degrees, right? Equine science, equine management, whatever we want to call them. And as they step away from what I call the academic experience into the professional world, they are not as competitive a candidate, not as competitive a early career professional without some business background. So I really do like to share the impact of that, because to your point, it oftentimes isn't until 10 or 15 years later that we look back and say, whew, I might not have liked that stats class or that econ class, but it was one of the most impactful experiences that built the right skills and connections moving forward that, really gave me more confidence as a young professional.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, this is where it really gets interesting. You went from your bachelor's program. Tell us then the transition to pursuing a master's degree in ag education.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I really wasn't thinking for a while. I wanted to train horses, and I had the opportunity to ride with some trainers. I studied abroad in Europe for a semester and rode over there. And I enjoyed it, but I just think somewhere along the line, somebody told me about health insurance and benefits and a living wage. And I'm thankful for that. And there are certainly many horse trainers that are very successful. I'm not knocking it, but I think it just something changed in where what I wanted to do for the future. And I had a good friend that was going through the ag ed program master's as well at River Falls and was going into 4-H youth development. And I just realized like, wow, I could do that. Like that's what helped me grow as a youth. And I would love to be able to have that opportunity to work with youth again. So I stayed kind of a non-traditional student, went right into a master's program and got my master's with the whole intent of working in extension programming. So I never taught, I was never certified to be a teacher in a traditional classroom. That would not have been a good fit for me. But I went right into 4-H programming and spent about 8 years in extension with at Wisconsin and was a tenured professor there. It was a great experience. I spent a lot of time with youth and livestock, which was kind of really my passion. And so great experience working with youth and families and in that role.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love your clarification that you were never intending to pursue a teaching career in the school system and become an FFA advisor and an ag teacher in a middle or high school program. You knew that you wanted to pursue extension work, which was, educating youth and really community involvement as much as anything. Right. So I think that 8 years there, you said that you worked in animal science, ag business, beef science, agronomy, and those types of programs. And so give us a little bit of a rundown of what I might call the demographic. Where are our youth today in exposure to careers? So did you then have the opportunity to really encourage young people who may not know that we have these careers out here in agriculture, animal health, and equine?
Yeah, so I am working with 4-H youth. I had the opportunity to really help expose them to some of the careers that are out there and available. We would hold, regional judging contests, for example, and we'd always have industry professionals in to kind of talk about what was going on out in the industry. And then when I transitioned from extension into faculty at 2 different technical colleges or community colleges, that's when I really had the opportunity to help students think about what their plans for their future were and really make them think about beyond, especially equine, there's more than just horse training as a career or more than just nutrition. Those are very important careers to the industry, but not the only ones that are available. And so that's where that ag business piece really came in when I could encourage students to think about, if you have horses on the side, like could you possibly be an ag lender in town with your ag business degree and still work in the industry but be able to afford to pay for the expensive part that is horses or in any field. I had a lot of students when I was the beef science director at a college. I had a lot of students that would have loved to fit show cattle for a living. And that might work when you're in your 20s and you have good knees and a good back, but it might not be a forever career for everybody. And so thinking about what you can do beyond what you see or what you grew up with, and especially more and more students are further removed from modern agriculture. We're anywhere from 4 to 5 generations off of the farm now. And so helping them, if their experience was only show cattle or show horses at the fair and in an open circuit somewhere around their house, and they haven't been exposed to what else is out there, helping them kind of think outside the box of what's available and what interests you. If they really were good at numbers and they enjoyed the ag business, then thinking about working in ag lending or working with the markets, thinking about different careers that they didn't even realize were available. And I am in that boat. I had no idea my career even existed. And so that's kind of a unique perspective, I guess, that I have on it. I didn't come into this thinking this is what I was going to do for a living. So,
Right. And so that's just it. Like, what a perfect transition. Just 2 years ago, you made a switch out of academia and into an industry role in animal health. So tell us how that came about and kind of what you're doing and all of the things.
yeah, so I probably thought I was forever going to work in extension, and there were some changes to the structure and some obviously budget cuts were always facing that, and the role just wasn't the same. And so that's kind of how I got into teaching at the tech college. And I loved the students, loved the classes, but probably not as much room for growth. If you're going to be teaching in a beef science program, as I was, like, you're going to be teaching those classes and those opportunities, and maybe not necessarily didn't want to be a dean or anything. So was looking for just a change, and like had moved to Northeast Iowa here to be with my husband, and was just like looking for something out there. And I didn't know if I wanted to be in sales or not. And I just kind of happened upon this job because I have a couple of friends that work for Zoetis, and happened upon this job. And because of COVID, it was a remote based position. And so I just thought, well, this sounds perfect. It's still teaching. It's still somewhat of a classroom experience. Still get to work with, students, but they're just new hires. And then I also really liked the idea of, like, I get to work every day with our tech service veterinarians and our other industry professionals within our company. And so I'm working every day and learning more about the industries that I'm involved in. I get to know all of the science that's going on behind it and facilitate these. And it felt like it was too good to be true, but it's been a really great opportunity, and it's a very different feel moving from government and academia to an industry position, but it's been a welcome change, and it's a great company to work for, and the opportunities are kind of endless here. So
I love that. And you make mention that you want to keep your options open always, because you said that your career journey is nowhere near linear. And so that's a great example where, you essentially spent the first decade of your career in education and 4-H extension, and now have transitioned very recently in, all definitions, to an industry role like this, where again, you're doing training and facilitating for new hires coming into an animal health sales career. So I think that's a great example of how you don't know when you are going into college, or even when you're coming out of college, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. There are very few careers that are that way, that are going to be forever the way that they traditionally were. So I think that's a great example of keeping your options open.
Yes, and you just never know what's out there. Like, you really don't. And and I still am. I can go on the page right now and look at the careers that are available at Zoetis, and there's everything. There's working in the labs, there's marketing, there's sales reps. It's you have no idea what's out there until you really start to look. And so I can't encourage folks enough to take a peek at some of those opportunities.
Yes. And I talk a lot about that too, Sarah. I'm glad that you brought that up, because once you start exploring some of those job postings, even if you are not yet qualified, if you really start to read rather than skim on job postings, you'll really start to learn, okay, what are the things I think I might be interested in doing? And how do I get there? Who do I need to know? What are the academic and extracurricular activities that may position me for some of these skills and characteristics that, they are seeking? So I think that's just really great advice.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you have no idea. Like, that's it. It's so shocking to me when I look back and think on it. So
Right. And now the other piece of your advice is never stop learning. And we hear that, and we hear it from a lot of people, never stop learning. But what does that mean to you? Share with us why that is so important to you to provide that advice to our listeners.
That has been a theme for me that has come through probably every part of my professional career, and then on my horse side as well. And so on the professional side, for me, that was always kind of the vision of extension, is that it's always lifelong learning. And so what can you continue to learn? What can you, build on? And so that's always been part of it. And I think even when I taught at the collegiate level and was faculty, it was just, what can I learn to give a better experience to my students and make them more relevant for their careers? And now in this role at Zoetis, I get to learn every day, it makes me sound like a nerd, I guess. But I really enjoy that part of my job, is that, when we have new research that comes out about our products, or we have, in general, something that happens out in the field, and it's, if it's a new biological disease that they're dealing with, or if it's wildfires or whatever it is, it's watching how our experts on our company react and how we can help our customers. It's just always an opportunity to learn. And so even the classes that I facilitate, I'm in there trying to learn that, just like the new reps, because I get to keep learning. And on the horse side of it, that's something that has probably been instilled to me with every person I've ridden with people I look up to, is that you're always a student of the horse. Like, you don't know everything, and if you think you do, you're done. So you're always learning, and there's always somebody that's better than you, and you should take the opportunity to work with those people to get better yourself. And so I think that every horse I've ridden and trained, every client I've worked with, like, I learn something from them, I retain it, I take it to the next one, and I'm always trying to get better. And so if you quit learning, you've stopped. Like, you've put yourself in last place. And so I always try to be a good student of the horse and of the client, and really use that to be better for the next one. And there's a million times I've said I wish I could go back and have that horse to start again because of what I know now. But if you can keep doing that, you just continually keep to improve at whatever level you're at. And that's really, really handy when you're working with animals. So,
Oh, I love that. You said when you quit learning, you put yourself in last place.
I think so.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really an incredible way to think about it. I love that. I will often say the term I use is I'm an enthusiastic student, right? Like, I want to learn. I want to be curious about people and what we do. Like, obviously here we are having this conversation because I'm curious about you and how you got to where you are. And that's what our listeners love to hear, are those little tidbits of wisdom and advice. You also used another word that I love that I want to give a shout out to, and that's relevant. You want young people to be relevant, to gain skills, to be relevant and bring value. So that's one that I use often. And I think it's a word that we can continue to repeat, especially for our young people who are going to make that transition from student to professional. What we are working towards is not memorization and regurgitation of information. It is to be problem solvers and thinkers and enthusiastic students and be relevant in order to bring value to your colleagues, your coworkers, your customers, your clients, whoever it is. So really, yeah, solid advice there. So you have also your own business, and we touched on that early on, but you do have a Facebook page that I want to talk a little bit about. What is S2 Performance Horses? What all do you do there, Sara?
Well, so that started out as a side hustle because apparently I wasn't busy enough. But I was really fortunate in college, even though I did not decide to become a horse trainer, that I rode with quite a few trainers and had the opportunity to learn a lot. And I knew I always enjoyed starting young horses, and I wanted to kind of keep doing that. And it kind of became that will be something I'll do on the side for myself and maybe other people. And then when I first got out of grad school and started working and having like a real career, it was, well, I have to fund the horses somehow because, you have a lot of non-negotiables that you have to pay for as an adult. And it was, the horses don't pay for themselves that easily. And so I really started judging professionally at that point. And that money was always kind of funneled back into cash flow the horses. And so I've always had my own horse to train and show. And then I have picked up a few clients here and there and a few clients' horses. And so that's kind of my little side hustle. It cash flows itself, and it stays at whatever size I want. So that's the real beauty of doing it very part-time, is that I can say no. I don't have to get myself too overwhelmed. I still put my priorities on my full-time career and my family, but it's just enough to keep me busy, to give me a couple of horses to ride. I enjoy coaching youth and adults. And so it's kind of been that opportunity. And I got into the Pony of America's breed, or POA breed, because of some good friends in college. And we truly are an all-around breed. So you don't need a tall horse to do the hunt seat events, and you don't need a different horse for Western. We do it all on one. And people are always looking for broke, quiet ponies for their kids. And so that's how I got into that breed. And because I'm a professional and I receive funds, I have to show in the open. And so that's a level at which I can be competitive and not have to spend as much money. And be doing it full time. And so I really enjoyed that breed because I've had some really fun opportunities to work with some great horses and great clients. And that's kind of where I focus. I've taken other breeds. It's not like I don't like other breeds. It's just have always kind of been in the stock horse industry and had that opportunity to work with the POAs. And I'm pretty short. so I don't look out of place riding a pony. And they're just the opportunity to ride them in the all-around events is really fun. And so I like doing all of the events if possible, if the horse is capable. And so that's kind of been my side hustle. And the judging, I've been very fortunate to officiate some national 4-H contests, officiate some state level shows, and get the opportunity to work with different breeds. And I love doing open shows and county fairs because I can get on the mic and talk and kind of give my reasons. And that's how I learned. I didn't have a trainer growing up, so it was always going to 4-H shows where the judges would give you tips to improve. And so I try to give back in that way when I do 4-H judging or clinics for county programs. I really enjoy that part of it too.
That is awesome. And now I mentioned, but it has come full circle. Like, how does it feel now to have a 2-year-old daughter in the show ring?
Oh, it's the best thing. It's a lot to manage, and thank God for my husband and for my mom that help with that, and my clients that are great with her there. It's a lot to have a 2-year-old at the horse show, but our breed is so family focused, and we have lots of classes for lead line, and it is just absolutely the best part of the horse show is seeing her ride. And she rides lead line with some of my clients and some of my close friends, and she gets to ride all different ponies, and she cries when we take her off. She just loves it, and it's just so fun to see her. And know for at least the next couple of years, I'll get to kind of work with her. I'm sure when she's older, if she really pursues it, I'm going to send her to somebody else to coach because I think we'll butt heads too much. But it's just so great to see her. And the last show we were just at this last weekend, she came running down the bleachers after my trail class, and she just figured out how to hold 2 thumbs up, and she was holding her thumbs up, said, "Good job, mama." And it was the best. So it's so fun.
Yes, I love it. And that's just it. And I asked that question, Sara, very specifically because, I want our listeners to hear the positivity and the reward and the fulfillment of these careers and what all you're doing. It does sound like a lot, but it isn't that you're some superhero, right? Like, you're making it happen and you're pursuing things that bring you joy and provide you with fulfillment, and what I call maybe not succumbing to the hustle culture of today. And so we want our young people and early career professionals to know that this kind of life balance is doable and it's purposeful with intention. Find other people who are going to support you and champion you and the things that you are great at and that you are really pursuing and interested in. So that's, I think, the take home message of that is you've got a really rewarding your career, but all in all, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're a career professional, you're also a coach and a judge and a trainer. So there are a lot of roles that we play, and it is really about deciding what we want and what fits in our lifestyle. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And I wouldn't be able to do it without the support system that I have. But I think raising a young woman now, it's weird to think about myself as a mom in a way, but when I think about what I want to set for an example for my daughter is that that you can do and you can be strong, and I want her to see me be successful in a career, but also in other pursuits of interest. And I want her to be able to think she can do anything, and with the right support system and with the right tools in her toolkit. So.
I love it. So I've been asking all of our guests the same 2 questions. So with that said, I will ask you first, what is one piece of advice, Sara, that you might offer related to just that life balance that you would give our listeners in the face of what I call today's hustle culture?
Oh, that like I wish I could go back and give myself this advice. Like when I was younger, and I really think it's important to like figure out what your priorities are, and learning to say no is okay. I think that when I was younger, I tried to do everything, and you can never really do everything super well. So finding what your priorities can be, and figuring out where you want to go, and understanding that it's okay to have goals for yourself and to fulfill them for yourself is really, really important. And it's okay to say no. It's hard to say no, and you feel like you want to do everything, and people like to gatekeep the who's more exhausted, who works the most hours, who And I really like, I don't even know. Sometimes I feel like life work balance shouldn't even be a term. Like life and work are separate things, and you have to put your priority to your family. And my career is very important to me. I love my job. I love the company I work for. It's very important to me, but in the end, it's my husband, it's my daughter, it's my family. And so learning to say no and balancing that. And it still can be hard at my age and with my experiences, but it's been a skill that I continually work on, I guess.
Yes, for sure. So I love that. Really kind of honing in on your own priorities and learning how to say no. That's such great advice because it doesn't come easily for most people. And
Mm-mm.
and it's not just going to happen. And sometimes we're going to say no and look back and be able to say I should have said yes to that, right?
Hmm.
Or I should have had a different no. And we get caught up because I couldn't agree with you more. And many of my listeners have heard me talk about this, that's my most despised term is work-life balance. It's life balance, right? Nothing's ever going to be in balance, but just like I list out all your roles, we have these roles that we play in life, and our job is one of them, and it is just one of them. And we have all kinds of other roles as it relates to our family and our spouse or our partner and our health and our fitness and all these other things. So I do love that advice. Saying no is not easy to do. Find yourself a group of friends, or as I call it, your tribe, that you surround yourself with amazing people that you can have those conversations with. People that are going to cheer you on and champion you and cheer for you when it's time to cheer and hold your head when it's time to shed a few tears, right?
Hmm. Amen.
Yes. So the second question is, do you have a book or a podcast that you'd recommend to our listeners? And if so, Sara, why?
Oh, so it was funny when I read that. I knew that that was going to be a question, and I thought, like, well, I'm definitely not going to talk about how I listen to Dateline all the time because I do. So probably not the best one to talk about. But as far as like from my horse side of it, I really like to listen to Down the Rail podcast. And it just any opportunity I can to listen to. Like I've even started listening to Clinton Anderson's podcast, which like listener discretion on that one for language. But I love hearing how people have got to the point that they're at in their professional like equine careers or what
Yeah.
their experiences are. And I just like whether they're ropers, reiners, pleasure horse trainers, whatever it is, I just love hearing about how people got the background that they did and where they got to where they are. And they always have great advice for young people starting out. And I think that they also talk about really good life lessons that they've learned. And so like I'm preaching to the choir here and repeating exactly what they're saying, but like you hear that business theme come up a lot. People say I wasn't a good businessman or woman when I first started, or I didn't take enough opportunities to learn from other people, or I got cocky or whatever. And just learning about from their mistakes has been really beneficial, I think, for me in my horse career, in my professional career. I think that that is really beneficial for everybody to hear, I guess. So
Yes, for sure. So Dateline, Down the Rail, and the Clinton Anderson podcast. I mean,
yeah,
we've got Sara figured out now.
yeah, right.
So, Sara, as we wrap up here today, what other advice do you have? We've got so many listeners who are making the student to professional transition. They don't know all of the careers out here. We have many that are early career professionals, right? That are really kind of in that first 5 or 10 years of being out here. And they're going to, look for different opportunities. They want to know how to learn and grow and develop and be the best version of them that they can be. What advice do you have to share? Anything else?
I feel like I have like a whole list of things, and it's basically what I wish I could go back and tell myself when I was that age. But really, to keep your options open, you just don't know what's out there until you start looking. And if that means looking at somebody's website and finding what jobs there are, to utilizing your career counselors if you have availability of those, you just never know what's out there. But making friends with people in the industry and networking never hurts you. So you might not know what positions are there, but you might talk to somebody and you might make that connection and you never know where that will lead. So I think always keeping your options open and being willing to be flexible and things might not be linear. And they certainly aren't for me. And so like that is really important. I think you just don't know what's out there until you start asking. And again, the lifelong learning thing, never stop learning. Just keep like whatever you can build on, whatever, if it's a weekend continuing education credit, like you never know who you might meet that might help you in that path. And especially like on the horse side, I guess any opportunity that you can take to learn from somebody else is really going to help you with the horses, and that helps you in other parts of your life as well. And kind of one personal thing that I think it's taken me a long time to learn, and it comes more from the horse show side of it, but just because you win in the show pen doesn't mean that you're good or bad, and just because you don't win that day doesn't mean you're good or bad. I think I've had to learn that the hard way. And so learning to just go out there and do my best, have a good ride, or and meet those goals versus thinking that I have to have the trophy when I walk out of the pen, has really been helpful for me as far as training horses, but that also kind of bleeds over into the rest of my life. So
Yes, rich advice, right? So pay attention, listeners. Sara, I cannot thank you enough. What a cool journey you've had. And, especially for you, I just have to say thank you so much for pouring into the youth of the industry, right? Agriculture, animal health, equine. Thrivers, these careers are out here. Find people like Sara and learn from them and connect with them. Sara, I know you and I are connected on LinkedIn. I will share also your do you say S squared performance horses? Yeah.
yeah, rest too. Yep,
Yeah.
just Sara Schaefer. That was my
Yes.
creative juices.
Right. Yeah. So I figured it was S squared, but it does, like, for our listeners, S2 performance horses. And they can connect with you that way. But again, thank you, because what a cool story and what a great role you have, in addition to all of the other roles that you're playing in life, to be a thriving equine professional. So thank you, Sara.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great to talk.
Yes. All right, Thrivers, have an amazing day. We will see you back here, same time next week. Cheers.